This is a D6 generation pip. Bite-sized content for a busy gamer. Sometimes featuring Craig, sometimes featuring Russ.
Hey, what about me?
Oh yeah, and sometimes featuring Rafe, Hollywood Granger.
D6G Hot Take.
Hey, welcome back to another D6G Pip, one of my hot takes. This time around, we're talking to Mike Tunez of Firelock Games and Blood and Plunder fame. I'm really enjoying these segments where we get back in touch with our friends that we haven't been able to talk to for a while. And Mike, why don't you tell me, how are you doing after this crazy last couple of years?
Hey, Craig. Super happy to be back here, first of all. But it has been an incredibly crazy few years. But overall, we're doing okay. We're doing a lot better than a lot of people, so I can't complain, right? So things are going all right.
That's absolutely true. It has been insane. And we're doing well just being where we are, I guess. How did you guys was there anything you guys did over the last 2 years to sort of change course or adapt as things locked down? And then from your point of view, what did happen with the gaming industry?
Yeah, so we did a lot. A lot has changed with us. We kind of totally did a 180, or not really. We did a 360, really, because so if anyone's followed our stuff at all, we kind of started out and we did almost everything in house, right, except for printing and dice. And so we were doing our metal miniatures and resin cast chips, and we're still doing that right now. But we've been in the process we were in the process the last few years. Technically, still are in some cases. Of kind of shifting over to some more plastics, more manufactured stuff, done overseas and things, kind of stuff more typical what people do in the game industry, especially people who are selling into distribution and trying to get to some wider accessibility, right? So, and so it turns out, and not just the pandemic. And the pandemic, I feel like, just kind of fast forwarded what was kind of already happening that year. We were starting to see the beginnings of it as we started getting into it. But so we just kind of we've kind of gone a totally different direction. And now we're in the process of shifting everything back to doing it ourselves again, for the most part, right? Because domestic is the way to go these days, where it was not so much the case, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Just at the very beginning of 2020. That was, still the way to do things. Everybody did a Kickstarter, made all the minis and printing in China because it's so much more affordable, and we're able to do better margins and things. But not so much the case anymore. So there's been a lot of things. So I don't want to just go on and on. But to answer your question, there's been a lot of changes, and we can kind of go into some of them. But I'll let you ask some more questions first. I'll just sit here and talk.
Well, that's kind of what you're here for, but I get it. So when you say that you're going back to sort of back to your roots a little bit and making things more in-house, is that to address some of these supply chain issues that we hear about on the news?
Yeah. So right now, the big elephant in the room for us right now, of course, is our Kickstarter, which we did in 2020. So we've usually been pretty okay. We've always had delays like everybody else, but we've never been like a year late or anything like that. So but this is going to be our first Kickstarter. It's about a year late. Hopefully less. Hopefully we still won't quite hit a year, and it's tracking okay right now. But I'm trying not to be too optimistic, just in case. But, I am fighting to get that to be the case, but it is a tremendous amount of work that we still have. But so just things overseas in general are changing. there's a lot of the price for manufacturing in China, and then the way they've cracked down on a lot of stuff over there has made it difficult. Like just in the last year, so COVID was obviously a factor.
Yeah,
and continues to be a factor. Just recently, they had right after Chinese New Year, they just shut down a whole bunch of factories and things because of another. I think it was COVID. To be honest, I'm not actually sure.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't clarify that now that I think about it. But all I know is that they were shut down.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we were waiting on wasn't getting done because there's nobody could go to work. So
right.
We're kind of sitting on our hands again. And that's been kind of the case in the last few years. Like last year, there was quite a bit of time there. It was like a 3-month period where factories were just constantly getting shut down because they didn't have power. They didn't have electricity to run their factories. So, I'm not going to speculate on what that's about, but it's a factor. And it seems to be like there's always a new problem overseas. And then add to that the absurd inflation that's happened in shipping. We're paying 5-6 times what we predicted, and we predicted high because 2020 when we launched our Kickstarter in 2020, things were looking like they were kind of getting better, right?
Yeah,
it seemed like all right, everybody locked down, we got the vaccines, things are going forward. I think this pre-Delta variant, I'm pretty sure, but it seemed like all the predictions were everywhere that things are starting to turn back to normal.
Right.
And then a little bit after that is when shipping just fell apart, right? And then that just caused supply chain issues and all kinds of problems. That continues now and has actually gotten worse in some instances, better in some, worse in others.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's just something I honestly don't want to deal with anymore.
No, I don't.
And I'm sure our customers don't want to deal with it anymore. Yeah, and it's thanks to, we've all been on the end of your Kickstarter where you're excited, you back it, and then you sit around and wait for it.
Right.
It's just not fun. It's not a pleasant process for anyone. Right. And trust me when I tell you that creators suffer the most in these things because it's you're working so hard, and especially for this, we're our latest Kickstarter is all hard plastic sprues, and we have a 2-player starter, so we even have a 28mm hard plastic ship. Yep. Which is that alone was 2 years of development to try to get it right because we're not. All of us came into this with no knowledge of the game industry when we started this company. So as we go into these new fields and these new areas, we don't really know what we're doing, but we try to deal with people who do so that we can get through the process. And it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of learning and a lot of tweaking, but we're committed to doing it really well. So we don't want to just throw something out there and hope for the best. We're going to make sure it's good. So it's been an incredibly tedious, difficult process. So to have it now just be stalled, while we're waiting for stuff to catch up with itself is just, incredibly frustrating.
I can imagine.
But, the good news on that project, though, is that we just yesterday, I don't know when this will come out, but yesterday was the 30th of March.
Yep.
We're recording. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if that messes up your.
You can no. You can say whatever you like.
Okay, so we put out. I was finally able to get a lot of information. I have enough detailed information now to be able to give a good prediction. So, sometime between August and November, this will be in people's hands.
Okay, well, that's got to be good news.
I'm hoping much more. Yeah, it is. So now it's tunnel on this thing. So and everything has been turned in for quite a while. And now it's just a matter of them getting the tools done, which they then send us the shot. So we look at it, we build it, make sure there's no pieces missing, everything goes together the way it needs to, etc. And then we do any corrections we need to from there. So there's still some work to be done, but nothing that we can do until they give us the plastics in our hands.
Right. So was the Kickstarter mainly blood and plunder for plastic, moving it to plastic?
Yeah. So it does two things. It's I wouldn't call it necessarily moving to plastics, but adding plastics as an option.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of because it's incredibly expensive to do these plastics, and so we tried to make some more generic sets that worked for different things.
Yeah.
So you could grab a box of sailors, and unlike a lot of our other offerings where it's a specific, these are Spanish, these are French, these are Dutch, etc. These are just kind of generic guys, although there are some options in there for heads and weapons and things that you kind of gear them one way or the other.
Oh, nice.
But ultimately, they're generic, so you can use them for anything you like, as long as they fit within that context. So there's like Native Americans or Maroons, there's militia, there's soldiers, there's sailors, etc. And then we also did a Pirates of Legend. So another thing that Kickstarter did, I guess we never talked. Did we talk about the Kickstarter? I think we talked about it.
I think so. I think that was the last time we talked, was around 2020.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's got so I won't go into it too much, but it's one of the big cool things we did is we also did like the sloop, like I mentioned, the 20 ml sloop in hard plastic, which is super cool. That's
awesome. That's crazy.
That's my pride and joy right there. But
yeah,
but that was a lot of work. But anyway, we did a Pirates of Legend box. So all the famous pirates from that anybody who watched Black Sails or is now watching our flag meets Bat 35.
Yeah,
you'll be familiar. Jack Rackham, Charles Vane, a lot of these other guys that are Steve Bonnet's more famous 18th century pirates are going to be included. So because it's, as well as with the plastics, we also kind of moved the timeline forward a little bit into the 18th century.
Uh-huh.
So now you got a little more room to play.
Right.
So that was that. Another interesting, so it's funny to go into, if I can, I'll go into a little bit about our moving into our own development stuff.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot more to the catalog now than there was a couple years ago.
Yeah, we've tried to keep things going. So once we finished with all the Raise the Black stuff, we just kind of kept developing new things because we can't just stop doing stuff and wait for these guys to make our plastics and everything. Because we got to keep the doors open in the meantime to make sure this thing everything works the way it needs to, and we can keep things going.
Yeah.
So there's we've tried. So one of the big issues that we've had is the skyrocketing price of metal.
Right.
Computer in particular. Right. So I'm sure you've heard about this. But,
yeah.
A lot of companies are moving away from it completely, and we've always said that we'll do metal forever. There's no reason for us not to. But I mean, it's gone up like 70%.
Yeah, right.
Since from the time we started in a very short amount of time. So like over the last year, it's probably gone up 65% of the last year alone. That's just a guess, but that's about right. Yeah, I think it's about 65%.
It's rough either way. Yeah. Yeah,
and obviously that's kind of, we always kind of priced our metals low to be, because we knew our metals were always low price for what they were. When we started out, we had 4 metal models for about $12. Which you compare that to any company that's selling at the distribution, such as like Infinity or BattleTech or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
That's a lot less.
Cheap.
That's for many it's a lot less than you're typically getting.
Yep.
But that was okay because we kind of were making it work with volume things, and we wanted to get people into the game. But then as the price got really high, and we're up to now. We're now up to $20 on the blister pack, and our margins are still not great.
Right, right.
So that's kind of become untenable. So there's a lot of new technology coming out, thankfully, and especially in the resin department. So this is not your fine cast stuff that's brittle and falls apart.
Yeah.
But so we've invested in some new equipment that is to injection mold resin. That we're going to be doing in-house. And we're going to be doing our molds and everything else. So we've invested into that. And the material is excellent. It's not like the resin, if anybody's familiar with our stuff. It's not like the resin our ships are made out of. It's pretty different. This is kind of more similar to a PVC. It's a little bendy like PVC, except that it's not as sensitive to heat as PVC is, so you won't get as many like bendy barrels and swords and things like that.
Right.
So it's kind of nice. I would say it's superior to PVC. It's kind of right there in the middle between PVC and hard plastic. Kind of has a nice little
that's
niche
great
in between. Yeah, so we're in the process now of converting all of our metals into that. And we haven't actually, I don't think we've actually announced this anywhere yet. So this might be
cool.
a breaking thing here.
Nice.
So we don't have our equipment yet. We won't have our equipment for another few months. But in the meantime, there's other people who are going to be running it for us. So those will be, that should be coming out sometime in the spring. We should be getting out the first boxes. Because, we want to, it's our goal to keep the game affordable, which is part of the reason for plastic. So I don't like charging $20 blister. That's purely because we have the choice. We can't lose money selling them. So
right.
That doesn't do anything for us. So one of the things we tried, and it's been kind of a mixed result, is we tried some higher end 3D printed resin minis. So we did a small release of that, and the resin is actually surprisingly durable and it looks great. But it's really a lot of work to get it, and it's really slow, and we got to add a lot of extra packaging because it's interesting because you could grab the mini and throw it across the room and it won't break. But in the package, just the models rattling around, they'll break if we don't really package them well. So I'm not exactly sure what the science behind why that happens. This doesn't make any sense. But so that's something we tried. It was moderately successful. At least the minis were nice quality. So when you actually have them in your hand, they're fine. As soon as you have them and they're good and you paint them, there's no issue. But they're just way too slow. I mean, we're constantly. It took us forever to get it out and done and fulfill everybody's orders for it. So we're not going to continue to pursue that. So instead, we've invested in this other machinery, and we're going to go forward with that. And I've got really good.
Well, it sounds ideal though. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the only downside to it right now is that you can't file mold lines down. You gotta cut them with a knife.
Oh,
that's the only real downside to it, but it's got a lot of upsides.
Yeah,
such as it's very durable, and if it breaks, if you do manage to break it, which is difficult, it kind of tears. So when you glue it back together, it glues back together really strong, and the seam hides well. You don't have to prime it, which is really cool.
Oh,
you
wow!
Paint right on it.
Oh,
you can, I've experimented with this. You can paint right on the model, even with contrast, and you can paint right on the model, and you could rub it with your fingernail, and the paint doesn't come off. It takes great paint, takes paint fantastically. The detail is definitely superior to metal. I mean, it's fantastic.
Really, it sounds like a miracle material.
It is, yeah, and you're going to see this. It seems like everybody's getting into the same stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's getting pretty common in the industry. Quite a lot of companies have already adopted it, and it's seeming to become like the new standard. I suspect that metal models will start to disappear completely in the near future, and this will be the new standard for those kind of low volume specialty kind of things. And but since we've made this investment in this equipment and everything, going forward, we're going to be doing a lot more model stuff, which is kind of exciting.
That's But
I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'll leave you some questions.
So to sum up, you just said you're looking forward to doing a lot more models and a lot more minis, right?
Yeah.
And I assume that involves looking into the catalog. You've got Blood and Plunder, but you also have Blood and Valor and something called Blood and Steel. So what's going on with all that stuff other than blood?
Well, so these are all Blood and Valor and Blood and Steel are basically people who have gotten the Blood and Plunder rules and modified them and adapted them to different historical time periods. So Blood and Valor unfortunately came out in February of 2020. So it came out to a world that was about to be locked down.
Yeah.
So same thing with Oak and Iron, right? Oak and Iron came out in March of 2020. Unfortunately, so it just landed. It landed just as everybody was not able to. Well, I should say the Kickstarter started going around then, at least in the States. So it landed just as everybody was not able to play it. So,
right.
But so these new games, so Blood and Valor is a World War I game.
Oh,
and we just released the rule. We only do the rule book. That's all we do. We're not doing minis for these, at least not right now. We have partnered with a company called Firelock Consortium, who has some really nice miniatures, and we've given them the license to basically make minis officially for that game. For Blood and Steel is on pre-order right now, and it should be out. It should be out early in the next quarter, which is by the time everybody's listening to this. Unless you somehow get this out tonight. But and that is a Victorian era game, so that's a farther reaching game. So in the book there's some factions for, or some settings for, let's see, there's Second Seminole War, there's Mexican American War, there's American Civil War, there's the Anglo-Zulu War, there's the, I forget the name, something with a T, and it's basically the Anglo-Maori War. And then there's the Spanish-American War. I believe that's everything covered in the initial book. So that's kind of compassed a very large time frame. It's about roughly 100 years, a little less than 100 years, but it's a pretty large time frame and a pretty wide. Not any one. It covers a bunch of different conflicts, right?
Yeah.
And so both these games have the core system is based on Blood and Plunder, but they each have their own unique initiative mechanics, so they don't use the card system, but they do maintain the activation system and the fatigue and the D10s and everything else that the core of Blood and Plunder is still there. So if you're familiar with Blood and Plunder, you'll pick it up no problem. And they each have their own twist to make them unique and different and adapted to their time periods and stuff. So, and this is a series of things we're doing. Basically, we take submissions for that. So we have people who just kind of present us with ideas of how they've modified the game system to work. And if it looks good, we'll publish it. So we have another one that'll be coming out later in this year, which is set in the 100 years. So it's going medieval.
You're going in both directions at once.
Exactly, yes. So, and Blood and Crown's cool because it's still going to have the ship combat part, which the other two don't have.
Oh, really?
Not quite yet. Yes. So we're going to have, so you'll be able to run around in cogs and blow each other up, or each other. Well, not really blow each other up. There wasn't much blowing each other up, but there was a lot of boarding and shooting each other with arrows and stuff. So they did have some cannons, but they weren't exactly sinking each other. I don't know if pretty primitive cannons still in that period.
And what's that rule set going to be called?
Blood and Crowns.
Blood and Crowns. Nice.
Yeah. So, and the cool thing about these projects is since they're kind of, we vet them and we play test them and stuff, but they're not designed in-house. They're just designed by people who like the system and who have different interests from periods. Yeah. Because, I know a lot about that colonial era of the Americas, and I'm pretty well versed in all that stuff, but I'm not really much of a history expert outside of it. I know a little bit, but not enough to go and start writing a rule set. But so we have a bunch of fans that do have these interests in these particular periods and have done a lot of studying. So we kind of leverage that, and we publish their works, and they base it around our system. So they've got a good framework to kind of adapt and work with. Yeah. And so far they've all been, Blood and Valor has been really well received. It's been out for I want to say 2 years. Yeah, 2 years now.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
So 2 years. So 2 years now. We sold out of the first print run. We're going through the second one, and everybody who plays it enjoys it. It focuses on. I think it's pretty unique in that it focuses on a lot of the small skirmishes, like trench raids, or like small battles and war-torn villages and forests and things like that that are outside of the typical, sit and shoot each other from trenches, which is the typical aspect or the typical view people have of the First World War, which doesn't seem that appealing to game.
Right.
Some of these smaller skirmishes are a lot more interesting. So, and it's cool. It's a pretty accessible game. It plays on a 3x3 board, so it's take a ton of space.
Yeah, fast
and it's
close and bloody.
Yes, right. There's no, unlike Blood and Thunder, there's no reloads or anything. So it's a much more fast-paced game, and it's its own thing. Despite the fact that the core mechanics are the same, it really feels like a different game, and it represents the different conflicts well. So that's cool. And then we've got a few other ones that are knocking around in the background. Nothing I'm ready to to announce this yet. But there'll be a few others of those coming down the pipe. So.
Nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, and going forward, so typically we have not made models for these. So with Blood and Steel, for example, we worked out a deal to get some distribution through Perry. So we're going to be selling some Perry miniatures. So we've got a couple bundles with the Perry miniatures, plastics like American Civil War and Civil War.
Yep.
So there's bundles on there you can pre-order that have some of those figures included. So you can just buy ready to go, 2 armies and a book. You're ready to start playing as soon as it comes out. And so that's what we're doing for now. Now that we've invested in this new equipment, and we're going to start trying to make more models and make that a bigger part of what we do. So in the future, some of these releases may have some limited model ranges attached to them as well. So,
well, that's exciting.
We'll see what happens to that.
Yeah. So, can you give us a little like insight? So, when you say you're looking forward to doing a lot more models, are there any kind of dream projects you're sort of thinking of?
Oh man, I've got a long list of those. So.
Just your top 10.
Well, the biggest one, honestly, my dream project. So Oak and Iron is Oak and Iron was a game that we had big plans for. We still have big plans for. But we had big plans in 2020 when we launched it. But it launched into a dead gaming scene, right?
Yeah.
And we tried to do what we could. We utilized Tabletop Simulator and we did an online campaign, and that's it's been really great because we created a little community that's been great. And I wish I could go back and do more of that, but I'm just so tied up with everything else right now. We haven't been able to. But so thanks to that, Oak and Iron has its community and it's there. But that game's now been out for 2 years without much in the way of new releases, because since it's all prepackaged, made in China stuff, it's kind of impossible to do right now. We don't really have a way to make it. Right. So this new system. The first thing when I wanted to invest in the system, Oak and Iron was on the forefront of my mind. Yeah, with this new machine, right? Because I had all this stuff like Oak and Iron. We had all these big plans for Oak and Iron that didn't really come to fruition, like I talked about. And I really think it's a great game. I think it is a I'm really proud of it.
We should say quickly, just in case people, because that's actually the last time we were talking to you was Oak and Iron. And it's awesome. It's a much smaller scale game, and it's like ship combat, right? So, it's just like ship on ship, much smaller, very small footprint on the table, and just a fantastic game. So this was in your head when you got this new technology.
Yeah, because we really planned on being aggressive with this one because it's so accessible, right? You could get. The core set retails for $69, and that gives you literally an entire game in the box, right? Like you could treat that like a board game because it's even got, it's kind of similar. It's packaged similar in a way to X-Wing or Armada or a game like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we even give you the maps and terrain. You get 2 full-size fleets in there for the smaller side of the game, but still, it's not like you can't play with what's in there. There's a lot.
Right. No, you absolutely can have a good fun game with just those contents. Yep.
Yeah. Quite a few of them, that has a lot of replayability in it too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we wanted to really, because it's an easy game to develop for as well, for us on our end. And we designed it that way.
Yeah.
So we can constantly be putting out new stuff for it. But that has been the opposite of what's happened. It's been out for 2 years and nothing. We haven't been able to put anything out, even though there's tons of development. We have sculpts, we have new ships, we have a full campaign system. We've got all kinds of stuff that we developed for it that we just literally can't put out because we don't have a way to make it right now because of all the issues overseas. We launched our Raise the Black Kickstarter for the Blood and Thunder stuff.
Yeah,
and the Oak and Iron was supposed to follow right on its heels. And we had a lot of work done toward the Blood and Thunder stuff, so we thought that would be a quick turnaround, and that turned out to not be the case. Everything falling apart.
Yeah,
what the mold making process should have lasted probably if it went really long, 6 months. That was like worst case scenario, and it was almost a year.
Ugh.
So maybe more actually because we're still in it. So
we've
got a few left to do. So that was just a nightmare situation. But even then, even if I had done so, even if those issues weren't in the way, the logistics part would still block me from doing it. So,
right.
It's, I had to figure out a new way to do it.
Yeah.
So, and I've been exploring things. So the 3D prints, we looked into that. It didn't really work for open iron. The mass and the bits that we have didn't really work well. But so with the system, we'll be able to cast those ships, and the parts will be durable enough, and it looks right. It actually looks, I think, a little better cast in this system, if I'm being honest.
Uh-huh.
And we're still able to do a lot of the things we were doing, and we're going to be able to make ships available individually, which was impossible before because it costs. For some reason, I still don't understand exactly how this works out. But doing what we did in the Kickstarter, we did one ship in a blister, and that was the same cost as doing the 3 ships in one box.
Really?
So it cost us the same. So I'm not even when I say cost the same, I mean to the cent, the exact same price. So
wow,
that didn't turn out to be viable.
No.
So there's been a lot of requests for individual ships, and with good reason.
Yeah.
When somebody's building a fleet, especially when people want to play the more traditional naval battles, right, with ships to the line, you don't want to buy 3 packs with first and second rates to get a few more third rates. It doesn't really make sense. But
yeah, we
just don't have another alternative right now because I can't make anything else. So, but I'm trying to change that. So we're trying to find ways to do that. And once we get the system in place, then we're going to be able to start really cranking on open iron heavily. So that's the main thing I'm looking forward to, I think, to do with this machine, especially because now the molds for the ships that we have, the sculpts that we had are great, but our sculptors have just been getting better and better at doing it. So now that we did the first run, all the new ones look even better, and we have a ton more options and new things, and I'm really excited to finally get that out.
Right. That's awesome.
And it's going to go right to, and it's going to be able to go right to retail. So
right.
That's another big advantage. We're going to try to avoid a lot of these really big Kickstarter projects that end up getting us slogged down on releasing other things. So going forward, it's looking like we're probably going to be doing more smaller, more nimble projects, I guess is the way to put it. Like the Fire, like we just did a Blood and Plunder release where I told you we did the 3D printed models, and that was for a sort of mini expansion, even though it's got quite a lot of content. But compared to the other expansions we've done for Blood and Plunder, it's very small. And it's called Fire on the Frontier, and it focuses on the first 2 French and Indian Wars, or King Philip's, rather the first French and Indian War and King Philip's War, which you being in the region, King Philip's War, I'm sure you're familiar with the history of that. So, so we did some Native American models to go with that, some new French and English models to go with that, and we did this small book, and we were able to turn around pretty quickly. So that's kind of the direction we're going to be doing a lot more projects. And we'll still do some bigger releases, obviously, down the line as we get to bigger points in the history line. But that's kind of what we want to focus on now is once we get this machine and be able to crank out models more regularly. Yeah, we're not dependent on anybody but ourselves. We have an in-house sculptor now that we've had for a while.
Oh, great!
And we have the ability to create our models from scratch, basically start to finish entirely in-house. That's going to make us a lot more flexible and able to do a lot. But it's been
that's awesome.
All this stuff has kept me busy.
I can only imagine. But it sounds like you did what you had to do. You were nimble. You adapted and developed while everything was shut down. So it sounds like it's awesome. It's like you're ready to hit the ground running now that things, knock on wood, seem to be opening up again.
Yeah, and that's the hope. That's what we're trying to do. It's definitely an adapt or die type situation. So,
right.
And I have no intention of letting this thing die anytime soon.
No, well, we wouldn't want it to for sure. What kind of volume are you going to be able to put out a lot of models with the machine? How fast does the machine sort of produce?
So that's the great thing. I don't have the numbers.
No. Of course not. Of course,
very fast.
Now, I wouldn't understand them if you had them.
Well, I wouldn't mind sharing them like that. I just don't remember off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
But it's, it's injection molding. It's an injection molding process.
Right.
So it's basically you stick the mold in the machine, it injects the resin. You let it cool for a second, you pull it out, and then you put the next mold in, and you keep circulating molds that way.
Okay. So it's like plastic.
You're talking. Yeah. It's exactly this. It's pretty much exactly the same process. It's kind of like a hybrid process between the old metal casting and the hard plastic casting. It's like it's right in the middle. It borrows a little bit from each end of that. So,
that sounds like an amazing hybrid technology that's like really well suited to where you are.
Yeah, it is, and it's a lot of, like I said, I think it's going to change. The accessibility of it is going to change this industry a lot, I think, especially for a lot of domestic companies. Companies in the States doing miniatures have always had a bit of a hard time competing with pretty much anybody and coming out of Nottingham or the UK in general. Yeah. Just because it's so hard for us to sell over there, but it's not terribly difficult for them to sell over here. And they've got a big chunk of the market over there. Yeah. So it makes it a little harder on us, but stuff like this will help. I think it's going to help a lot of collaboration because, you can, anybody with a machine across the pond over there, you could send a mold down there, and the molds are pretty affordable, so it's not difficult to do. And they can cast for you over there. And then I think I could foresee, I don't have anything like that set up right now, but I could foresee that being, something that happens that makes it more accessible worldwide. Wow. Which I think is going to be really good. Yeah. So I think it's a kind of a cool time. What's weird, I think this equipment came out just before COVID. And I think as the world fell apart, they kind of hit their stride because now they really became much more convenient. Right.
No, it seems like it's a perfect machine for the moment, right? As all of these supply line issues are happening, and it feels, China just locked down the entire city of Shanghai, I think, this week. And I know there's at least and this isn't just, our friends who make games and so I know there's at least one Tesla factory that just got completely shut down. So it's, everybody's having to scramble, and it sounds like this machine really is sort of like made for this age, which is cool. It's like, it's really neat. It's a neat sort of reaction or result or just happenstance that this is happening in this moment. So, and you take your silver linings where you can, of course.
Of course, yeah. And I think there's going to be a lot more development with it too. So it's cool that since it's, it's a system and it just takes resin. So I'm sure there's going to be more development in the materials and how they're used and being able to use colors and different things like that. So it'll continue to evolve and grow like everything else. Yeah, and you're on the ground floor. Successful. Yep. I don't know if I'm on the ground floor, but
you're on the first or second floor.
Yeah, right. But like I said, I think it's been out since before COVID. So I think a few people have been utilizing this technology for a while. But it's still relatively new. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, and that sounds to me like that's what's on the horizon. Then you've got little tiny fleets, and you're going to have more and more of these of the hybrid PVC resin models. PVC, they're like PVC, right? We don't want to give anybody the wrong idea. Right. Well, that's great. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up soon because I think my scheduled time here is going to lock us out one way or the other. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the latest. So we talked a lot about Black Flag when we all first met you guys and we started talking. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the latest addition to Pirate TV, Our Flag Means Death. And you and I have talked a little bit about it. So you saw it.
I did. Yeah, I saw the whole thing.
Yep. And
I enjoyed it. I liked it. It was, I will say it's not what I expected.
No, it's a little,
I expected it. I expected it to be more like what we do in the shadows. I expected more of that direction. Yeah. But it wasn't. It's actually, it seemed to me more like, if I almost feel like if Wes Anderson and Taika Waititi did a show together, that's how it would come out. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It didn't have the cinematography of a Wes Anderson film, but it had that kind of humor, which I appreciate. So I
sort of the quirky humor.
And there was some
Waititi's the bomb diggity. I'd watch him paint a house. So
so there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good. I love a lot of the little historical humor bits in there. That if you're a pirate nerd like myself,
and I don't know how many people out there realize that it's based loosely, they say, on some true, like Stede Bonnet. You actually mentioned a little while ago when you're talking about the box of minis from the Kickstarter that are real historical pirates, right? So there's going to be a Stede Bonnet mini.
There is, yeah. And so what's fun is that Stede Bonnet had always been my favorite pirate because he's such an outrageous character in real life. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the show doesn't stray too far. I mean, I don't think he was quite the gentleman as they portray him in the show, right? He's not. I mean, obviously the guy was. If you want to go a little bit to the background, just real brief, some of the things I like that makes him interesting, right? Yeah, is Stede Bonnet would be like a guy like you and me goes to the movie theater and sees Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, right, and then they're like, I could do that, and then you go, and you get a ship, and you go and try and do it, right? That's what Stede Bonnet actually is. So, like he gets a ship. He gets quite a nice ship. Apparently, it's a very well built sloop because it's noted as being that's one of the things that attracted Blackbeard to him in the first place. He had a nice ship that he could utilize. Right? So, but he says, "All right, I'm a pirate. Let's go out and do some pirating." So the first thing he does is he encounters a Spanish warship. So real life pirates do not fight warships; they just run. But not Stede Bonnet. Stede Bonnet says, "This is what pirates do. Let's go get him." Gets savaged. His crew, like half his crew, is killed. He's grievously wounded. Just limps away from the fight. He has a good ship. Is the only thing that gets him out of it, pretty much. Yeah. Ends up in Nassau, in the pirate haven there. Yep. And that's where if I remember right, that's where he links up with Blackbeard. And Blackbeard's kind of like, I'll show you the ropes a little bit, but he ends up just kind of taking over his stuff. But that's just kind of crazy audacity of just going out there and just attacking the warship of your sloop. Yeah, is just the kind of thing it's like something you do if you're playing a video game. Like, there's no consequence. Right. And then he got woken up really fast. You would think, but then not really, because then he gets into these whole adventures where he gets arrested, and then he does all these crazy escapes, and then he ends up in a naval battle when he's finally caught again, and he's actually fights. He's willing to, and he's just a maniac. I love it. It's great. So the show doesn't really go. The show doesn't really go in that direction, but the general stuff is kind of true. Yeah, he is a guy. He does run off on his family and become a pirate. That part is real. Right? Yeah, he does link up with Blackbeard, and they start kind of working together. And except in the real story, he just hangs out on Blackbeard's ship, like in his pajamas, reading books. But there's some cool stuff in the show. Like, without giving anything away, at one point where Blackbeard mentions that, he goes, I haven't actually killed. I've only killed one person, right? And then
that was true.
That's not so much that it was true. Yeah, but he wasn't. There's no record to indicate that it wasn't. He's not known for actually killing anyone, right? So that's one of those fun little kind of anecdotes. And then
little nods. That's great.
Yeah, and then in the first episode, it's funny because I'll often joke about my partner Alex always accuses me of actually hating pirates because I'm always like, oh, that guy, he didn't do anything. He just like robbed some fishing boats, and that's he became famous because he had 2 women on his crew, like talking about Jack Rackham, right? So, so it's funny that in the beginning, they're pulling up in their ship and they just robbed these 2 fishermen, but that was what the majority of piracy really was. So I thought that was a great joke.
That was funny.
So, they wouldn't have stolen the plant. They probably would have taken, who knows? Right. But yeah, I think I've been enjoying it a lot. What about you?
I really enjoy it. I love the sense of humor. I love all the crew and the little secondary subplots they have going on. I love that half the old cast of Saturday Night Live makes an appearance at one time or another. And I've just really, really enjoyed it. Reese Darby and Taika Waititi are just phenomenal. And I think there's not and of course, Hodor's doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's fun to actually see him say more than Hodor. And
I really enjoy all the characters.
No, it's fun, and it gets you thinking about pirates again, which is, you know what, never a bad thing.
No, never.
No. So, well, Mike, thanks so much for joining us today, and especially with our little audio issues that we had and soldiering or pirating on. That doesn't sound right. Well, anyway, thanks for working through it. And
no worries. Hopefully, get that out so we don't torture people having to listen to it.
Yeah, no, there's been some editing for sure. Hopefully, or something's gone horribly wrong. We'll get that in post, as we always say.
As you say in the biz.
Exactly. But it's been awesome talking to you, Mike. We can't have a pandemic and 2 years go between the times we talk again.
Definitely. Yeah. And we didn't get to go to Adepticon this year. I know you guys didn't either, but we will definitely be there next year. Awesome. And our con schedule will start to flourish from here on out. So I'm looking forward to that. That's when everything will really feel normal again. Exactly. Yeah, we weren't able to do it Adepticon either, and I'm committed next year. No matter what, I'll be there. So, if not sooner than that, I'll see you in Chicago. Yep, at the very least, right? Absolutely awesome. Thanks so much, Mike, and good luck with the new machine. I can't wait to see what you do with it. Yeah, we're gonna do a lot, so you'll see lots. Awesome. Bye bye. Take care.
Hey, thanks for listening to this D6G Pip, and sorry about the audio troubles that we had. Because of those troubles, we did miss one little item. At one point, Mike asked about the book for Jamaica, which is my next book that should be out in July, and that is actually a collaboration between the Firelock Games gang and Wing to Sar Publishing, and very excited about that, so that should be out soon. For that and other news on my writing, please check out my website at thegallantscribe.com. And also, I'm putting together another segment, and I would very much like to catch up with some other freelancers from the gaming industry. So not just writers, designers, and artists as well. So if you are a freelancer, a game writer, designer, or illustrator or artist, or you know one, and you'd like to be part of a D6G Pip, about how people get into the industry and what it's like in the industry, please reach out to me. You can either contact me at the website, thegallantscribe.com, or you could email me at craig@the d6generation.com. Either one of those would be great. So thank you again for listening and for joining us, and look forward to talking to Mike and to you again soon. Good night.
That was a D6G Hot Take.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode.
the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at info@the d6generation.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thanks for listening and happy gaming.